Hello and welcome to Comms Business Live. Today we're looking at disintermediation in the channel, and I'm delighted to be joined by Scott Goodwin, Senior Vice President for EMEA and Managing Director at Net Sapiens. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hi, good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. So the channel is going through a real transition at the moment, with business models and traditional ecosystems being disrupted almost beyond recognition. What are you seeing happening in the marketplace?
Well, I'm seeing the rise of the technology titans. Certainly, you're seeing enormous, predominantly American technology brands that are growing at an enormous pace, providing value, I guess, in the process as well. But these large technology behemoths are now effectively kind of encroaching on the channel. They started working with the channel, and now you're starting to see a kind of peculiar situation where those brands are becoming very visible towards the end users, and that threat of disintermediation is upon us.
And how has Net Sapiens reacted to that change that you're seeing happening?
Well, we've been around quite a long time, 17 years or so. The business has always been channel centric, so it's never had end user relationships per se. It's done everything through its partners around the world, of which there's more than 200 now. And I guess one of the things that we're seeing is that these large Silicon Valley based technology businesses is the pace at which you have to create or keep pace with the features and functionality that's going out there. But it's to us, the bar for unified communications is extremely high. You just have to hit it or don't bother, really. So we invest in all of that R&D to make sure that we not just keep pace, but in some cases we also lead in those areas. But what we're seeing more so is being a business partner, really, as much as a technology partner, and that forms itself in many different ways. So one is making sure that our customers get the ability to take our technology and augment it in their own image as they would like, to be able to integrate it with whatever they like in order to be able to fulfill customers' end user requirements, to be able to support as many edge devices on our platform and not just link it to the brand that we are, essentially, that we've seen with some operators. It only works well with the devices that we manufacture. We have a very broad range of devices that we support, because we need to provide our partners with as many options as they can to be competitive in the marketplace. So great APIs, lots of device management that we will have, but also the way that we price our services is that we don't price by feature and by seat, which is the common way of doing so across all portfolios, is that we charge our services, everything that we've got, you get, and it's only in use. Effectively, you only consume your licenses if the call is actually in use. So if your customer's using the services, that's when you consume a license. And that makes a radical difference to the kind of pricing strategies our partners can deploy. It does fantastic benefit for the margins that they recoup from that as well. I think the final thing is providing the tool sets, again, beyond just features and functionality, but the ability to be able to serve their customers better. So better SIP monitoring solutions, better OSS capabilities as well.
So those are some very clear ways that vendors can react to these changes and things for partners to look out for when choosing vendors to work with. But some change also needs to happen internally at channel companies themselves. The managed service providers need to react and adapt. How do you think those channel companies need to adapt to this new environment?
Well, I mean, going to our point before about the large technology businesses and the threats that they pose to the end user relationships that they have, I think channel partners have got to play to their strengths. I think, and those strengths to me are customer intimacy. Nobody knows those customers better than they do. They've had long relationships with those customers. They've got deep and broad hooks into the customers. It's not just sort of one-dimensional in terms of, you know, the amount of contacts that they would have in that organization. So to me, the successful ones will play to what is good for them, and that is deep understanding of customers, the ability to react with to the customer's needs and requirements, to be able to, you know, to serve them well in what they want. I think to leverage that understanding of their customers in the portfolios that fit the right solution for those customers. Again, what you tend to find in with some of the larger ones is it's all about them. You know, we're trying to put our square peg into a round hole. Service providers have the opportunity to be able to create an augmented solution that's just right for their customers. And I think that's the thing that they need to focus in on, is their strengths.
And some kind of a common thread through what you just talked through that is that element of customer ownership. And that can be something that vendors and partners can really disagree on. What are your thoughts on that, on kind of who owns the customer in a vendor-partner relationship?
Yeah, I mean, this is it, isn't it? It's, for me, who the customer pays is the person that is who owns that relationship. As an entrepreneur, somebody around my own business, for many years, who I wrote the check to was the person that I decided was the person that was delivering service for us. But you are seeing this strange kind of challenge that's going on as large vendors are starting to dictate very clearly to service providers about the solution that will be delivered to the end user, that how many of them are making sure that their brand is on it all the time. And you only have to hear people talk about, you know, just in common phrases, hopping on a Teams call, I'm doing this, is if you ask those end users, you know, who is your supplier, is they'll probably be saying, oh, it's Microsoft or it's Cisco or whatever, where it's not. And that isn't by accident that's happened. That's by design that's happened. And there lies the thin end of the wedge. And I think that's one of the things that channel in general has to really start to take a cold, hard look at itself, which is some large brands might get you through a door easier, but ultimately, as I say, it's the thin end of the wedge. And what you're starting to see is an encroachment on customer ownership at that point. And many of them are inviting them through the door in that process, you know, and it will start off with, well, actually, you can make more money from doing one-off professional services pieces of work rather than actually billing for the service itself. And again, you're starting to see those things happen as well. And ultimately, that erodes value in the own businesses that have taken a long time to be able to be created in the first place. And again, it's also sort of saying that you don't really have any part to play in the development of the services moving forward, which I think is the core strength of service providers in general, is they know their customers better than anybody. And they've built long-standing relationships with those customers over time. And they have better insight than anybody in any of these large brands.
Yeah, that element of how the feedback loop would be disrupted by service providers having less ownership over their own offerings is something that probably isn't talked about enough, because you're right, it's service providers that can really react to what they're hearing from customers. And
well, I think it's where innovation starts, to be honest, is a robust competitive channel program provides choice for end users, and choice has never been a bad thing where competition comes across. And if it just ends up being, you know, 3 or 4 large providers, is what actually happens there is less choice comes about, and actually a gradual erosion of customer service will happen. Is that, you know, you won't get to speak or let alone see people. You'll be dealing with a chat bot and some form of algorithm when it comes to your customer service requirements, because that's the very nature of these organizations. It's about land grab, and then it's about efficiency gains, and then also the way that you manage that kind of software architected world is that you effectively provide a one size fits all, because it's an economies of scale game. Remove the service provider from that ecosystem, and I think you're the worst for it. Is that customers won't get the ability to innovate because they won't have the ability to influence, you know, a Microsoft or a Cisco or whoever. They'll get what they're given, really.
Absolutely. And this whole conversation has really emphasized how high the stakes are and how competitive the marketplace is. And you touched on towards the start of our conversation how unified comms has become so sophisticated and competitive that the stakes really have never been higher. So how should partners approach kind of developing new solutions and offerings in this environment?
Well, play to their strengths. It would be the number one thing to do. Understand their customers better than anybody else would have, but then have a set of tools underneath that they can deliver that vision for their customers. At Net Sapiens, like I say, it's never about us. It's about our partners, and it's about giving our partners the tools in order to deliver services to their end users. We do that through playing extremely well with others. So with our API, over 250 orchestrations can be completed through our API. It's published. It's in a RESTful state as well. So if what we have needs to be augmented with something else to deliver upon a promise to an end user, you have that option with us. That's available to you. The tool sets that we provide our service providers also give them exceptional capabilities for customer support and service. And it's having these bespoke elements that they can bring together that will deliver value to their customers, which are really important. You couple that with the ability to be far more flexible on how you want to price it. And those are the reasons why, you know, service providers need to think carefully about what kind of solution and, I guess, underlying platform partner they're going to choose moving forward.
So tackling this disintermediation in the channel that you're seeing happening seems very central to kind of your strategy and your approach. How do you think your kind of heritage as a real channel provider has kind of shaped that strategy?
Yeah, for me, and I'm relatively new to the business, for me, it all stems from the founders of the organization. The founders of this organization are all engineers, really. And one of the things that they decided on early doors was they're not salespeople, and they're not marketeers as such. Their real skill set is building robust SIP solutions. So, you know, over the 17 years that the organization has been going, it's never had a desire to be, you know, in front of the end users. It's never had a desire to build a big brand there. What it's had a desire to do is to create a functional solution that is highly resilient, that's something that could be proud about, and highly functional as well, that could be put in the hands of service providers that wanted to do the selling to the end users, that wanted to create the solution or the service proposition that the end user would ultimately consume. So woven with the DNA, within the DNA of Net Sapiens from day one, has been that thought process that service providers play the role of understanding customer needs and then delivering against those promises. And what we provide is the tool set in order for them to do that. Nothing's changed in the 17, 18 years that the business has been together.
Yeah, and that's definitely a very straightforward way for companies to understand what they'll be getting from working with you guys. So that brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks so much for sharing these insights with us. Plenty there for channel companies to think about in terms of the vendors that they choose to partner with. If anyone watching wants to find out a bit more about NetSapiens and how it works with its partners, there's some links in the video description that you can click on to find out more. But for now, thanks for joining us, Scott, and goodbye, everyone.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.